Welcome to TLC, where we dive into the heart of our local community. It's wineries, restaurants, business, and real estate. I'm Troy Anderson, along with my co-host Pamela, and we're here to bring you a new perspective on what's happening in our community. This week, we have a special guest, Dan Thiessen from Walla Walla Steak Company. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah.
I feel like there should be a few other things on the end of that. Not
I know. I was going to say and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
But let's let our guest do that a little bit. Let's do
Dan
that.
talk about that.
All right. So our first segment is Sipping on Success. What do we have this week? And I know it's a bit special this week. So
It is. Dan brought in some Sangiovese from his... It's your vineyard, right?
It's our vineyard in Walla Walla. My wife and I's, we have a 40-acre piece of ground, and on that we have 8.5 acres of vineyard called the Wagon Wrench Vineyard. We had a local winemaker, Jason Fox, from Lagana Winery, make a Sangiovese specifically for our Walla Walla Steak Company locations. He's a fabulous winemaker. He has Lagana Winery in Walla Walla.
I don't think I've ever had his wine before.
Yeah, and it's an amazing wine to pair with steak. And it's only available through our website or at the Walla Walla Steak Company wine lists, which is kind of fun.
And that's in Walla Walla and in Woodinville.
In Woodinville and in Walla Walla, correct. And then and then we also sell it through our Thiessen Ranch website too. Talk about beef business and some of the wines we have there too.
Cool, awesome.
See, I told you there was an and.
Yeah, there's a couple projects.
I remember we did the chamber
we did a
lunch in there, and Dan just was like, he does this and that and the other thing, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
I missed out on that, unfortunately. I was there for the ribbon cutting when you guys came into town, but I
remember that. Yeah, our son Gus helped cut the ribbon there.
Yeah,
so,
that was
cool.
But I missed out on
cool.
on the chamber luncheon. I don't know where I was, but yeah.
Well, yeah, you missed out for sure.
I did miss out. I heard all about it.
This great wine. It's Sangiovese tends to be a little more bricky in color and a little lighter.
I was going to say
that. And it's definitely that for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a super mellow, well-balanced wine that Jason put together, and he really geared it towards just a fun pairing with steaks. And so there's, Sangiovese doesn't tend to be super rich in tannins, but there's enough tannins in there to kind of cut through some of those fattier steaks, but also pairs well with some of the leaner steaks like a filet mignon.
Oh, wow.
But it will stand up to something like a ribeye as well. So it's a great, great steak wine.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, as you were pouring it, I was looking at the colour. So just so you know, I don't really know anything about wine at all.
You know what tastes good in the glass?
I know what I like.
That's the most important part.
Exactly. But, I have learned a lot on this show about wine. And as soon as you started saying the bricky, I could see that already in the glass. It has a lightness to it in the glass. And it does definitely have that brick hue around the edges that we've talked about before. And for a wine that looks so light, there's actually some serious legs on this too.
Yeah.
So for those people listening, the legs aren't, when we're showing off in skirts. It's the viscosity of the wine that's dripping down the side of the glass. So flavor-wise, I'm going to let Troy tell me what he's tasting while I have a little sip myself.
Well, have a sip. Yeah, I think it's very well balanced. Like you said, it's got a little bit of fruit forwardness, but not heavy. And then it's actually drier than I expected on the finish. Mm-hmm. So
so the fruit forward is what will pair well with some of your leaner meats, and the slight dry finish is what, again, kind of hits that middle of the road for those fattier steaks. So when a wine is super dry on the end, that's the tannins kicking in. And tannins hit people differently. Wine drinkers, profiles of wine drinkers are you're either you produce a lot of saliva in your mouth or you don't. And so you two might be similar, you might be different, but there's different profiles of consumers out there too. And so if you're sitting there having a wine like this and it's super dry and lots of tannin on your mouth, you may not be a person who produces a lot of saliva after you take that first sip. And it's always the second sip is the true teller of the wine. So the first sip is sort of a cleansing of the mouth.
Right.
And then the second sip is where you really, because you've peeled away some of those proteins that have been lingering in your mouth, and then you're tasting the true wine on the second sip.
Right. It's interesting that you say that, because the first sip that I took, it was very dry. It was like not so much that like all the moisture got drawn off from my tongue, but it was definitely like this layer of dryness there. And then the second one was a little bit more subtle with that dryness. It was definitely more towards the end and not the entirety of that kind of sip of the wine. I'm still trying to kind of pick out the flavors there. You say it's very fruit forward. I'm not getting that quite so much, but I'm trying to kind of break down in my mouth what it is I am
It
tasting.
lingers for a while too,
It does.
which is nice.
Which is,
Yeah.
It's a great drinking wine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those wines where you can simply have a glass of, or
Yeah.
you can sit there and have it with dinner too, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always nice. Or dangerous. One of the two.
Yeah, exactly.
Eat too many calories.
Yeah, yeah.
The winemaker at Yellowhawk, our resort project, she calls them porch pounders.
Oh, he did it. Okay, we didn't even need to go there.
I didn't want to confuse you with too many, but I could have brought a whole case of other stuff that we produce too. So
That's
yes.
funny. We usually say porch pounder every show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just as kind of a.
That's
It
funny.
started off as something, and it's
Yeah.
snowballed. It's
Yeah, her
thing.
Bubbles White, she calls the porch pounder. So we have
Okay.
the Yellowhawk Resort Project too is our Walla Walla project, and it's an exclusive sparkling house production.
Okay.
Oh.
And so we have a Bubbles line, which is force carbonated, but we also have a full line of sparkling wine, which is traditional carbonate, traditional method sparkling wine. So that could be a whole nother show. That's a big project we're working on right now in Walla Walla.
Oh,
So,
cool.
Well, great.
Yeah.
We'll have you back, and we'll
Yeah.
talk about all of those things.
Yeah.
come in
I think we need to go on the road.
That'd be fun.
I've been
Yeah.
saying this for ages. We
I
need
know.
to take a road trip, and we need to be,
Well,
going.
we got
and,
4 properties to show you over in Walla Walla.
Okay,
So,
wow.
Yeah, or 5 with the
Yeah.
ranch. So
We'll just,
yeah.
put all the gear in the back of the car, and off we'll go.
Off we
Mics,
go.
mics and headphones, and we'll be good to go. I like this job more and more.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Sounds
All
like fun.
This is delicious. We're
Good.
gonna continue to sip it as we go through the show, and I'm
You can
sure.
take a taste of the meat stick and
Oh,
see how it
yeah.
pairs.
Oh,
So-
yeah, yeah.
so for
Dan
those-
brought in some meat sticks.
Yeah.
Beef teriyaki sticks.
Yeah, that's our most popular one so far.
Okay.
So
All right. See, we get food and wine. All right.
Yeah.
Let me just take a little
we
bit.
got to have a little bit of both.
Yeah. I apologize for the awkward pause on air.
Yeah.
there.
We're grabbing some meat sticks.
We're grabbing it
I'm just
down.
gonna bite into it.
Okay, you do that. Then.
Yeah.
All right. So where can people get these meat sticks?
On our website, thiessenranch.com. So we have a direct-to-consumer beef business. I was raised on a cattle ranch 2 hours east of Walla Walla in a small town by the name of Asotin, Washington. And that's where our cow-calf operation is. We have a young couple that live on the ranch and operate that side of the business for us. And then last year we brought 80 head of yearlings over to our Walla Walla property. And they're finished on our irrigated pasture with a 120-day grain finish program. So they're all free range, black Angus, no growth hormone, no antibiotic. They're processed in a USDA facility. And people can buy, we have customers that buy half a beef from us, and we have people that buy a 10-pound box of beef. My wife's shipping all over the country. She runs the direct-to-consumer beef business. I'm her hired hand, basically. So
I love that. He's the
I made
hired
2
hand.
stops on my way to Woodinville today, in Woodinville, to beef customers, and delivered some ground beef and then a box of steaks. But we have a subscription business, and so if a lot of people want to buy from a local farmer or rancher, and not all of them are set up to do USDA, which we are. And so not everybody has a big chest freezer where half a beef will fit into. And so that's where our subscription service has been so popular, because you can get a 10-pound or a 20-pound or a 30-pound box of beef monthly delivered to your doorstep, which is kind of fun. So, and support local family-owned ranches.
All right, so I'm going to be honest here. When you pulled out the meat stick there, I was like, I don't know if I want to try that. So being British, we didn't grow up with meat sticks. And I see them in the stores, and
Yeah.
my son loves them. Like, I've never tried one. That was really good.
Yeah, good. Dan
Well,
brought
these
us a
are-
whole box.
Yeah.
I know we have a whole box.
These are not. They must be refrigerated, so there's not a bunch of preservatives in them, right?
I think
so
that's what was
it's
surprising.
natural
Is like
ingredients.
it tasted so fresh. Isn't really the right word, but I was expecting kind of a little bit of a bit more chewiness to it,
Yeah.
but it really wasn't. It was just easy to kind of bite into. The flavors were really robust, but not overwhelming, and actually pairs really nicely with the wine.
Yeah,
So
in order to make
I'm
these
gonna-
shelf stable, you have to dehydrate them more and
Right.
draw more moisture out, which is going to make that chewy texture to it. So they're perfect in the freezer. They're good for a couple weeks in your refrigerator.
Right.
Our kids love them. They throw them in their pocket. They're thawed out like in 5 minutes, and they're snacking
Yeah,
on them.
these are not dry at all. I mean,
No,
they're just
definitely, yeah.
delicious. I was expecting
Yeah.
really, really strong flavor, maybe a little bit overpowering. Not to be rude about, just that was my initial thought about
Yeah.
a meat stick, and so
Absolutely.
I'm glad that was the first one I've ever tried, because that was fantastic.
You're spoiled now.
I know. How can I go back to
Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter.
And so I'm just going to chime in here. I know we usually talk about wine, take a break, and do all that, but I'm just going to, since Dan brought it up about his half a beef or side of beef. We bought, I think, an eighth or a quarter. I forget now, but and we've done that before from other local ranches. But the packaging, the professionalism, just the customer service that we got from Dan and his wife were just amazing. Just the packaging too. He's got his, I don't know, for people online. He's got his brand on the side of the box.
Cattle brand.
Everything's packaged very well. There was a little note inside, personal note. I mean, it's just those extra touches that really go a long way. And then the beef itself was packed fantastic. It's
It's cryovac. Right?
Yes.
So a lot of times you'll get beef from the butcher that's wrapped in butcher paper.
Right. And you can't see the steak.
Yeah. And the cryovac adds, it nearly doubles the shelf life of the beef, right? So a lot of times when people are fearful of buying a full beef, they're like, well, we're not going to go through it in a year. That's why we decided to go with the processor that does cryovac like our restaurants do, because you can get a shelf life for up to 2 years in cryovac versus butcher paper. And our kids are involved. So that brand was established in 1803 in Germany. Came with my great-grandfather from Germany to Idaho in 1883 when he settled. It is now in my name. And our kids brand, our 5, 6, and 4-year-old brand the boxes with their mom.
That's so fun.
That's one of their chores.
I think you need a reality TV show.
Some of it would make great TV for sure. Yeah, for sure. But they're farm kids. So our oldest boy is 15. He's getting ready to buy his first vehicle, and he started an egg business when he was 7 years old.
Oh, great!
And today he's delivering 35 dozen eggs around the Walla Walla Valley on a weekly basis, and he's saved up enough money from his egg business to buy his first vehicle. So it's a good way to raise kids, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah,
absolutely.
That sounds wonderful. I didn't bring any napkins.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'll tell my wife we got to increase our customer service and napkins today.
Not even.
I was going to say, I think you're fine. And so, Troy, you said you had that delivered to your house.
Well, actually, Dan brought it over to the steakhouse here, and
okay.
we picked it up from them.
Yeah.
Wow,
It
that really
worked out really well.
Yeah, we're that nice that we have customers that just come into the restaurant, and the crew there knows that, hey, Troy, I'm here for some beef, and they'll go down and grab it. And
right.
So I'm in Woodinville at least monthly. And more often than not, my pickup's full of more beef than it is overnight bags for sure.
Right.
For my wife's got my deliveries mapped out for me where I need to stop.
Now, Troy you and I have talked about the quality of the beef off air because you mentioned it ages ago that you had done this. But for our listeners that maybe don't know anything about, Thiessen Ranch and the beef, how was it when you cooked it for dinner?
It was good. It was really good. Like I said, we bought from other butchers and local farmers, and the consistency of the cut, the thickness makes it easier to cook, and they're super consistent, very flavorful. My son he's like taller than me now and bigger and buffer, and he's going through the ground beef like crazy. He makes himself ground beef something or other just about every day. Yeah, and it's really tasty.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's high quality all the way around, from ordering online or picking up the phone or email or whatever, to the delivery to the table.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Appreciate your business.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to get more people involved, but
absolutely,
yeah.
We're continuing to grow. That's for sure. So it's been a good. It started off as a side project. It's been turned into a pretty good business. So.
Good.
That's always
awesome.
the best way.
Yep.
All right, well, we're going to continue to enjoy this glass of wine. We're going to take a really quick break, and when we come back, we're going to go in a slightly different direction with Dan. We're going to talk about his Walla Walla Steak Co. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this short break.
This episode of Tend Life Community is brought to you in part by Yura Family Dentistry. Are you ready to sell your home, but not sure where to start? Feel like your home may need a few updates to get ready for the market, but you're not ready to take on that project? At Tend Home Team, we have a solution for that. Our pre-listing home renovation program is designed to take the hassle out of preparing your home for the market. Need a fresh coat of paint, new carpets, maybe even a new roof? We've got you covered, all at no upfront cost to you. That's right, we pay for those things upfront and then just get paid at closing. With our total concierge services, your selling experience is elevated to first-class status. Let us handle the updates and renovation while you sit back and relax. Because when you choose Tend Home Team, you're choosing excellence. Get your home ready for market with ease. Contact us today, 206-504-3660, for a no-obligation consultation. That's 206-504-3660. Tend Home Team and Troy Anderson, where selling your home is a seamless experience from the start to sold. Welcome back to TLC Podcast, Tend Life Community. And we're going to dive right into everything Walla Walla Steak Co. So, Dan, the journey with Walla Walla Steak Co. is undoubtedly one filled with passion and determination. Could you take us back to the beginning and share a story of, the inception and where it came from?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I moved to Walla Walla in June of 11. I'd been over here in this market for 15 years. I was chef of the Space Needle Golf Club in Newcastle, Chandler's Crab House in Lake Union, corporate chef for Salty's Restaurant Group. My parents were getting up there in age, and back in 1999, I designed the kitchen for the Marcus Whitman Hotel for Kyle Mussman, who owned the hotel. And so I called Kyle and I said, look, I want to get closer to home, but not home, because I'm not going back to Asotin. What's going on in Walla Walla? And so he put me in contact with the president of the community college there. And so I became the executive director of the culinary program there, and we rebranded that to the Wine Country Culinary Institute and started a catering operation. We became the first community college in the country to have its own food truck. Wow. We were really doing a lot of hands-on training for our culinary students to go into the workforce, and it was the perfect place for me to land because I was like Switzerland in the culinary community over there, where my job was to supply workforce for the industry. And it really allowed me to sort of park and kind of figure out the scene there and maybe what Walla Walla was ready for. And after living there a couple of years, I ran into Paul McKay, who was the reincarnated El Gaucho restaurant group.
Oh, okay.
And Paul was walking down Main Street, and I ran into him, and I'd known Paul since 1996. And I said, Paul, what are you doing in Walla Walla? And he goes, I retired out here. He goes, what the heck are you doing out here? And I said, I grew up in Eastern Washington. He had no idea I was an Eastern Washington boy. So over lots of coffee and conversations, we started talking about, opportunities. And I was going to take part of our 40-acre farm and ranch and create a farm-to-table style facility there where we could do weddings and corporate retreats, and everything would be grown and right there on our property. And so he and I were kind of working on that business plan, and then the opportunity came up. He had bought the depot building, which is the historic rail car, or the historic train station there in Walla Walla, and it had a restaurant in it. And he knew the operator was probably not for the long haul. And so a couple of years after he purchased that, we were talking about what Walla Walla might need, and we were, we had said a number of times we were surprised that Walla Walla did not have a steakhouse, with all of the wine destination and all of the press around being a wine community. And so then Paul McKay and myself and Philip Christophides, who had designed all of Paul's restaurants, he also retired to Walla Walla. We got our heads together and we came up with Walla Walla Steak Company. Yeah. And so the way the building was laid out, it was sort of a more long than wide building. It had a historic rail car on one end of the building, and we started playing with some of the designs and stuff. And we didn't feel like the entire space could carry the steakhouse for that many square feet. And so we decided to then take part of that space and turn it into a tap room. Okay. Because the brewing scene was kind of coming on there in Walla Walla. So we ended up being able to move the rail car to the other side of the building, and created a brewing space in a new add-on at the end of the building, and that's where Crossbuck Brewing was born. And so we opened it up. It's a dual concept, right? Okay. Come as you are, and decide. As you arrive into the building, you're kind of walking in right in the middle of the building, and you see the live fuel broiler in the kitchen, and you get a chance to decide: do you want to go right to the steakhouse dining room, or do you want to go left to the tap room dining room? Yeah. And it was important for us to really key in on the fact that we're family friendly, that we're in Walla Walla and it's sort of blue jean comfort, but we still have those steakhouse traditions, right? So there's still tableside bananas Foster, and there's still dark wood and sexy vibe on the Steakhouse side. But then on the taproom side, we wanted it sort of lighter and brighter and incredibly family friendly, because we know that anytime you have a seasonal location that you got to definitely endear yourself to the locals to kind of get through the winter months. And Walla Walla's got families and retirees and all over the board, and so we sort of hammered out that concept, and we opened up in October of 2018. So we've been open a little over 5.5 years now.
Great.
So that was the original one.
Right.
Was Walla Walla Steak Co and Crossbuck Brewing in Walla Walla. And then we started some distribution, distributing our beers through Washington, around the Northwest. And then a couple years later, we started getting some inquiries about, would we like to expand that concept? And we've looked around. We've looked in Boise. We've looked down in Oregon, up and around the Coeur d'Alene, Spokane area, and of course here in Woodinville. And Woodinville sort of percolated first. And so I was asked to come take a look at the old schoolhouse. And I was standing in the middle of the schoolhouse with a real estate broker and somebody representing Main Street Development. And Kelly Price's name came up. And I was like, Kelly Price? And I pulled up my Facebook and I pulled up Kelly Price. And I said, is this Kelly Price? And they're like, yeah. And so I sent him a Facebook message. I said, I'm standing in the middle of your schoolhouse project. And he said, I heard you might be sniffing around over there. He goes, I'm on my way up there right now. I'm gonna pop in and see you. So I had cooked dinner at his house years ago for some charity auction that I'd cooked dinner at his house. And so Kelly showed up and I personally fell in love with that building right off the bat. I mean, our Woodinville or our Walla Walla location is the Depot building is a historic brick building. Woodinville is a historic brick building. Not that they're all going to be in historic brick buildings, but it just felt very similar. It's nearly double the size, but very similar. That as you walk through the main door of the space, you see the live fuel broiler, and you get a chance to decide: do I want to go right into the Steak Co side, or do I want to go left, onto the tap room side?
And you've got the 2 bars set up in there. I love that too.
Yeah, because I think that, sometimes you're in the mood for linen tablecloths and a more elevated affair when it comes to steakhouses, right? And there's a laundry list that kind of fit that profile, but I don't know that fits for Woodinville, right? I think that Woodinville's a little bit more like Walla Walla, where it's a little bit more blue jean comfort. And we're it's just another small community that is very endearing and protective of its identity, just like Walla Walla is. And so for us, knowing that there was not another steakhouse, there wasn't a steakhouse in Woodinville, just like there wasn't in Walla Walla when we opened up. It was almost like, it was 3.5 years later, it was almost like the exact same reason why we opened up in Walla Walla.
Yeah.
So... And to be a part of Main Street Development and GenCap with their construction crew, I think that schoolhouse district is a fun little vibe. I used to always describe Woodinville as a destination that it was sort of like egg-shaped, because you've got that, the protected ground, the marshy ground kind of in the middle around Woodinville that probably no development, hopefully, will ever go into. But when I lived in this market, it seemed like everything was on the lower part of that egg, where you've got Sato Ste. Michelle, and back then it was Red Hook and the Schoolhouse District.
Downtown, Taco Time.
Yeah, Hollywood Tavern, those days. But now I think Woodinville is becoming more of a circular experience. I used to always remember that, one of the things that restaurant guests who had been to Woodinville, they were like, man, it's just tough to get in and out of Woodinville, because they were all trying to go to the same spot. They were all trying to go to like Sato Ste. Michelle and that lower part, and now you can access it from multiple sort of points and begin your experience. And so I think now I look at Woodinville as being a little bit more of a circular wine experience where you can pop in and engage, and so it's nice to be a part of that. And it's really cool that it ended up that some of our Walla Walla friends, like Lacole and Valdemar, are also in the same development as we are. So that's been a fun journey for us.
So ultimately, what was the deciding factor on choosing that location for the Woodinville?
It was it came down to the relationship with the landlord, the opportunity for the location and the future growth. The accessibility was important to us, right? So the fact that I think that somebody that's going up the freeway could pop off the freeway real quick and enjoy dinner and then quickly get back on without having to go down into the quagmire, I think was important to me. And I loved the fact that it was, when I walked into that building, I fell in love with the building. It was a stunning, we saw the potential of that building. And it was fun to take a historic building and embrace the historic elements of it without sort of carving it up too much, and making something I think that is truly unique and memorable from that.
Yeah, there's definitely something special about that building, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, the ambiance of a restaurant can significantly impact your overall dining experience. And, you know, the interior of that old schoolhouse is so cool. Are there certain elements that you reused in there? Or?
Yeah, so we have, if you're in the upstairs part of the mezzanine area, the old counterbalance book doors, bookshelf doors are used. Some of them we left full wood. Some of them we put glass in. Those are used as the partitions now. The radiator heaters that were in the classrooms, that's our dividing wall behind the swag wall as you walk in. And I actually there was these double hinged bookcases that were upstairs. And I couldn't quite get Philip to embrace them for the bar there, but I used them in my new country bar concept at Walla Walla called T-Post Tavern. And what we did with them, so they were built-in bookcases that were double hinged. So you'd open up the first clasp of the wooden door, and there was 3 shelves in there with books. Then you could close that and open up the middle clasp, and that whole thing rotated out to showcase the bookshelves in the back. And so what we did in Walla Walla was we took out the wood component of the first door and put in glass. Okay. And we have sort of Grandpa's whiskey in there. So we got McNaughton's and Black Velvet and some of the
good stuff.
Some of the old cowboy style whiskey.
Yeah.
It's all behind glass and lit up. And then when you open up the clasp, both doors open up, and behind it, it's like a built-in speakeasy with all of our high-end bourbon and scotch back behind it.
Oh, that's fun.
And it makes for an incredibly dramatic back bar for our country bar that I just opened up in August of this last year.
Is there anything you're not doing? I mean, really?
That's very creative. I like that.
Yeah, no, I
so
think
it's fun, but everything we do is tied, right? So, so for example, you can get a Thiessen Ranch burger on the menu at Crossbuck. You can have our Steak Co, Wagon Wrench Vineyards Steak Co Sangiovese. At T-Post, all of our ground beef for our burgers, some of our steaks, and our meat sticks are on the menu. And so what we try to do is, as much as we can, we're vertically integrating some of our own agricultural products into our hospitality concepts. The beef program that we use at Walla Walla Steak Company, we could never supply the beef from our ranch. We would have to be running about 4,000 head of cattle to supply the restaurant with the steaks. So we went with an outfit called Cattle Company Beef. It's a cooperative of family-owned ranches that goes from Wyoming Colorado up into the Dakotas and over to Washington State.
Right.
And they're family-owned ranches, predominantly Angus genetics, no growth hormone, no antibiotics, and then everything's grain finished down in southern Idaho. That was really important to me as a family, multi-generation ranch family restaurateur, to be able to support an organization like that, a cooperative like that. So that's our steak program at Walla Walla Steak Company.
Cool.
So you talked about both in Walla Walla and here in Woodinville how you've got the the steakhouse, and then you've got the tap room kind of concept with the Crossbuck Brewing. Sorry,
That's right.
Kind of didn't come out right, but anyway, and they seem like they work cohesively together. But what was the idea behind that? I mean, you've talked about how it's kind of the blue jeans. You want it to be more casual dining for everybody. How do those coexist together? That dining space, for the steakhouse and the tap room vibe, and how is that kind of continually evolving?
Yeah, so it's funny to watch it evolve, because there's weekends where like the demand for Steak Co goes beyond the seating capacity of Steak Co.
Okay.
And so Crossbuck, that's why we have both menus available on both sides. if you think of it as if you were, your husband and a couple kids, right? So if you're family and you're going out, Crossbuck's probably the place you might go to, once or twice a month. And maybe Steak Co's the place you go to when it's just you and your husband for date night, right? But you're going to the same location. And we oftentimes get where you sit down and the kids want a burger, and the wife wants a salad, and the gentleman wants a prime rib, slab of prime rib.
So you've got them all covered.
Yeah.
And so while we can never be all things to all people, what we're trying to do is be like, if you want to sit in Crossbuck and watch a game and have a 16-ounce prime New York, you can do that.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to us that both menus are available on both sides. And if it's high school prom and the gentleman wants a steak and the lady wants something incredibly light, and a chicken Caesar, for example, that she feels just as comfortable ordering from that menu as well.
Right.
So for me, it's about kind of giving the guests what they want. I've been to restaurants before that have been dual concept where, if you want this menu, you got to go sit over there.
Right.
And then I feel like
We feel
way
awkward.
less than.
You're a lesser
right?
person.
Like,
Yeah.
like, am I not good enough to sit here, or am I too good to sit over there? And so we just want to. It's this deal of come as you are, sit where you'd like, and order from what menu. Because some people want a padded chair in that darker light, and they want that vibe and feel. That's what they feel a steakhouse is.
Yeah.
That doesn't define a steakhouse for me,
Yeah.
right? I'd love to sit there and watch the game and have a big 16-ounce prime New York. That'd be perfect for me. And then sometimes I want to be date night and I don't want a TV around.
Yeah.
And so that's why the TVs are on the Crossbuck side.
Yeah. I think it's really, it's great the way, it feels like two separate places, but it feels very cohesive when you go
Very
in. You've got
cohesive.
Crossbuck Brewing, and it almost has this kind of industrial, modern vibe to it,
Yeah.
yet you go right, and then you're in the steakhouse, which has a little bit more of that, I won't say old world charm to it, but a little bit, with that kind of
Just slightly elevated.
seating.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then we haven't touched on it, but then you have your cages with the wine, which is maybe something you want
The
to
wine lockers, yeah. Yeah, so we did those, and we put those in Walla Walla. We actually added them kind of after the fact. It's like, what are we going to do in this spot here? And so we thought about the wine lockers, and so we actually designed them in our layout here in Woodinville. And I think we only have a few wine lockers available, but it's $1,000 a year. Guests do not pay corkage in the restaurant. That's one of the perks, right? So most of our frequent diners love that opportunity.
For sure.
We can pull something for a guest. So if you've got a wine locker and you got a VIP guest come in, you can call ahead and say, hey, I got a bottle of XYZ in my wine locker. Will you pull it out for the Johnson party? And we'll pull it out for them. And every year we do a little special reception for our wine locker members. And we have some wine locker members that are wine club members of some of the schoolhouse district, and they just have their allocation delivered there and in their wine box for them. So it's a nice little perk and added touch. Some people buy them because they want to use them. Some people buy them because they want their name on the plaque. There's a lot of different reasons why people buy wine lockers. And so that's why we have I think there's 60 wine lockers there. So
I just wanted to point that out because I thought it was kind of unique. And when we took the tour for the ribbon cut, and I was like, this is interesting and different. And
yeah, it's fun. It's a nice little perk, like I said, for...
They've got the event space upstairs too.
Yeah, so we wanted to design a space. We have the private room that we can do dinners for up to 40 in. We've had some all-day meetings there for groups of 20, which is a perfect spot with full AV and PowerPoint and screen and everything. But then we have the curtains to subdivide and semi-private off some of the other spaces. So we can do a large event. I think the chamber event was on the taproom side, if I remember correctly. And
That worked out great,
We
though.
can pull the big curtains and the fire screens and kind of seclude that off. There's also some of the other spaces we can subdivide for groups of 24 groups. There's 2 spaces for 24, and so during the holidays we have groups of holiday dinners kind of everywhere upstairs in the mezzanine, which is fun because there are not a lot of private dining space options in Woodinville, especially with the flexibility that we have there. So you could do easily 120 upstairs in a sort of a round format around the mezzanine area. Makes it nice.
it's almost like you've thought of everything then.
We try.
Well, you seem to have a lot of experience with, dining experiences and food. Was that from the training, just from?
Yeah. So my growing up, I was I worked for the family. So I was feeding cattle in the wintertime and working for my uncle's farming in the summertime. My first job off of the ranch was working in a restaurant. Actually, the restaurant owner, there was a place called 3 Mile Inn, and Mom and Dad would go there about once a month. And Skip Jacobs owned the restaurant, and he was giving my dad a hard time one day. He said, if Danny here wants to get a real job, he can come work for me. And I asked Skip, I said, would I get a paycheck? And he goes, I legally have to pay you to work for me. And I looked at my dad, and my dad's like, don't get any ideas. It's not chores. And so I got my driver's license and started working in the restaurant, washing dishes and busting tables. And my senior year in high school, I either wanted to go to veterinarian school at WSU or I wanted to go to chef school. And my dad was like, okay, so you already work in a restaurant, so you know that, but how about you spend a week with Leonard, who owned the Lewis and Beck Clinic? So I did, and I knew 2 days into that's not what I wanted to go to school for 8 years to do. So the first airplane ride of my life took me from Lewiston, Idaho to New York City to go to chef school.
Wow.
After I graduated high school.
Cool.
And then from there, I did my internship at the Hotel Jerome in Aspen, Colorado. Graduated from the Culinary Institute of America in 1992 in Hyde Park, New York. And the next plane ride then took me to Switzerland, where I lived in Zurich for a year and a half, working in a hotel there.
Oh, yes.
And then a restaurant in Interlaken for 9 months, and then came back to the United States. So I've been able to travel the world and see lots of other locations and concepts and cultures, and it's an amazing journey for sure. But I love the lifestyle in Walla Walla now. It's right along my pace, so it's perfect.
Sounds great. That's an incredible history.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I was going to ask you what sets you guys apart, but I'm not going to bother. I'm just not, because it's clear. You have such an extensive background in the restaurant industry, and clearly the success that you're having at Walla Walla and here in Woodinville just speaks for itself. So that's what sets you apart. The fact that you can think, from my perspective, you can think ahead of what ultimately is going to come, what needs to be done, what are the consumers looking for, and giving people a taste of any eventuality of what they want, and not having it be a space where people feel either intimidated to go one way or out of, overdressed or out of touch if they're doing something else. So I'm not going to bother asking you that question.
I greatly appreciate that, but I will also say that, we are far from perfect, right? And we, one of our mantras within our team is that, we're shooting for that 90 percentile and above, mm-hmm. right? We won't drive ourselves crazy shooting for 99, but we shoot for 90 above. But our big deal is that, look, when we miss, we make it right. Mm. And we've got to have the opportunity to make it right. And so, if anybody's ever not had a 90% or above experience, we need to know so we have an opportunity to make it right. And so we try to do what we can with our customer surveys and 7 rooms reservations. We try to respond to Google reviews and Yelp reviews or whatever. But we also know that sometimes people may not have a great experience, so they kind of hem and haw about it, and they don't voice their opinion, but they just kind of put it in their deal of,
I'm not coming back there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, whether it's our restaurant or anywhere, my feeling is that the true test of the operator's integrity and their values is to point out when you've missed. And if they have an opportunity to make it right and they do make it right, then they kind of deserve that opportunity to at least give them another chance.
Of course.
If you voiced your concern and they don't do anything about it, then you have your decision.
Yeah.
Because when we serve, any given night on a weekend, we're serving 400 people.
Wow.
And the general manager and the chef cannot talk to every single person and get a true feeling on how their experience is. So, so we try to do our best, absolutely try to put it in there, but we're also really on our staff to make sure that, look, if something's not quite right, we got to make it right. Yeah. So that challenge goes out there that if, that's not just our restaurant, that's anywhere, that if you didn't have the experience you expected, let us know, let the owner know, and give us a chance to make it right, for sure.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think that's fair.
I think that's fair, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
That's all we could ask for.
there's those people that will always be haters, though,
Yeah,
But
and
most
we
people
we
are
can
not.
never change that,
Yeah.
and that's okay, but yeah.
Yeah, but for the most part, I think people, they want to have a good experience, but they also want to let people know that they've had a good experience.
Yeah.
And even if they haven't, this was a right way to do it too, right? It's, you can be polite about it.
And it's been fun getting to know some of the Woodinville locals,
Okay.
in the times that I am over here, and how much they've embraced and been thankful for us to come to the community and bring that opportunity for them. So I mean, we love being here. It's a great community to be a part of, and we know that we're coming in. We're not. I don't live in Woodinville, but I'm a Washington kid. I'm just the other side of the state, right? And my other partners, Chad McKay and Philip Christophides, we're all Washington guys, and it's not a big corporate chain restaurant. It is a family-owned business for sure. That's
so I
written
just
everywhere.
Touch on that just a little bit because you've talked a little bit about the beef and where it comes from, but sustainability and locally sourced ingredients is something that I think it's not becoming. I think it really is there. People are really thinking about the food that they put in their bodies, and sustainability and having things be local is something consumers are really concerned about. So what's Walla Walla Steak Company's commitment to sustainability and supporting local producers in the area? I know you talked about one of your places you have that consortium, if you like, which I think is still a great thing because it's small farmers that you're getting that from. But I mean, there's more than just steak that comes in. So can you talk about that?
Absolutely, yeah. So all of our seafood is sourced through sustainable vendors as well. We're just not, and so during the summer months, we're checking through most of our vegetables, and a lot of our fruits for our desserts are coming from local vendors. You'll see the farmers' trucks down below. We're just not that. We don't lead with that, so we don't have like the farmers' names listed on the on the menu and everything, and we don't try to. That's not who defines who we are. We support as many local farmers as we can throughout the growing season. I wish we had, we don't live in an area where it's all local all the time year round, and we can't do that. And we still have, for example, when somebody comes to the restaurant in December, they want a Caesar salad.
Yeah.
And I
Does it
can't
snow
say,
over there in Walla Walla?
well, I can't say, sorry, I don't have romaine out the back door, right? So I think we balance the line of what our guests are expecting with what we know is the right thing to do as seasonality presents itself and the opportunity presents itself. So we have a number of local farmers that we work with, and a number of local growers and fisheries that we work with and have them on the menu when the season is appropriate.
Yeah,
Cool.
I appreciate that because you're not trying to say that everything is local, but where you can, you will.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, it's the consumer that you're trying to impress, and So no, I appreciate that. But it's always good to know that you're at least trying where there's an opportunity, and I think that's great. And as a farmer yourself,
we're trying to do our part,
Yes.
right? That's the deal. And as a rancher myself and grower and everything else, it's ingrained. It's how I was raised. It's who we are. It's at our core, it's who we are. So
I would say that's kind of the mindset of that. Yeah. So.
I love that. I love the cross-pollination is what I call it, of other businesses and trying to incorporate them into what you're doing as much as possible. So, yeah.
As the tide rises,
Yeah, for sure.
that's our deal, right? So make sure your anchor's up.
I like that.
I tell guys all that time. As I mentor, my former career in education, I have a lot of students who now have their own businesses, and
cool.
Have an opportunity to mentor them, and it's they remember that as the tide rises, make sure your anchor's up. So they always remind me of that. Some of the little nuggets you come up with off the cuff and down the road a decade or so, and they're off running their own businesses. It's pretty cool to see. We have. When I moved to Walla Walla in June of 2011, there was a student, and his brother worked in the cafe. That current student is a sous chef for me at Walla Walla Steak Company, and that member in the cafe, his brother is my chef at T-Post Tavern. They've been with me on and off for the last 13 years.
Okay.
And so it's those kind of things that are really cool to be a part of. So.
Building relationships is awesome.
Absolutely.
Planting those seeds and letting them grow.
So you're deeply rooted in business here in Washington, and we always like to ask our guests at the end of the show, which unfortunately we're coming to, right? Yes.
I know, we could talk for hours, so you're going to have to come back.
Or we're going to have to go on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But we always want to ask about, what businesses, owners like that other people might not know about? Those hidden gems in the area. We'll expand it to Washington, so you don't have to just be Woodinville.
Well, I saw that might be a question, and no. So I'll tell you what. So when we first were hiring and everything, we got some pizzas from the Pizza Coop.
Oh.
Got to know the owners there, and seeing how involved they are in the community and with their families, with their family, that was incredibly endearing to me.
Okay.
And that's who we are, just not as a pizza joint, right? I mean, that's my wife joked. We went into the restaurant with some family from Virginia in Walla Walla Tuesday night. And it was just she and I in there, and it was before the restaurant opened, and she was chuckling because she remembers when we were doing all the hiring and training when we opened up Steak Company. She was pregnant with Gus, our 6-year-old son, and it wasn't too long later that she was pregnant with Otto, who will be 5 here shortly. And so, seeing those family-owned businesses like that is fun for us. I love Heritage. The restaurant, the chef owner there, she's an amazing personality. She was super supportive of us as soon as we opened our doors. She was here and
That's great.
and cheering us on. I've been friends with Bobby Moore for 25 years. Sometimes I claim that, sometimes I don't. Bobby and I, we love I love Bobby Moore. We've done a bunch of auctions together and had a lot of fun. And it's so awesome to see him. He had been talking about doing his own thing and for decades. And I finally told him one time, I said, "Don't talk to me again until you're ready." And so then he called me about the Biz on Main deal, and I was really happy for him to see him now kind of taking on his own deal, and Bobby's a very accomplished chef and a huge personality. I always call him my ankle biter buddy because he's a lot shorter than I am, but
I'm sure he loves that.
Oh yeah, his ego loves that. But like I said, Bobby and I have known each other for 25 years. So, but those are, and then to see what Jesus is doing from Baltimore and how he's doing the same thing in Walla Walla, where he's really taken a tasting room and just sort of quickly hyper elevated it from a level of pairings that can sometimes be mind-blowing with the offerings they have there. And having met his parents and his wife's parents, and just knowing that the generational experiences and wealth of knowledge there of hospitality and winemaking and food and wine as a culture is just ingrained in that family, and it just exudes itself when you walk into their space.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
And to see that significantly different approach to a tasting room experience, and it's not better than or less than that it's European or American or whatever, it's just a whole different experience. And having lived in Europe and seeing the difference in hospitality, and again, not better than or less than, it's just a different culture and a different approach that yields in a different result. And I think it's something that everybody should experience, is to walk in there with an open mind and realize where the delivery or the attempt of the delivery is coming from. And it's coming from 6 generations of Spanish influence.
You can tell.
Into a 1,000 square foot space. And I just love it when I walk in there, because if you walk in with that open mind of, I'm going to walk into an experience that is just steeped in tradition, and I think if you keep your mind open to that and just be a sponge, you'll walk out of there satiated and maybe stretched a little bit like a rubber band.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool experience.
I haven't been yet, but
You haven't been? Oh, you should go.
It's on my list to go because, as you know, I went to Barcelona a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Loved it. And so to be able to have something like that on our doorstep that's just a little different, a little unique, and like you said, steeped in history and has that European vibe to it, I'm in.
Yeah, we did happy hour there, and then went to Walla Walla Steak Co with friends.
Good.
Not too
Thank
long
you
ago.
for that.
So yeah, but you could stay there and eat dinner.
Oh yeah. You could graze your way through.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, it's stunning to see those types of things come out, and I think that's, I love little joints like that
Okay,
just
cool.
bring a significant curveball to what is a traditional experience for us here for a tasting room. pretty wild.
We've got some great options here in Woodinville now.
We do.
Headlining with the Walla Walla
Yes.
Steak Co.
Yes.
And the ones that you've mentioned there. Bricks I've been to is fantastic. Heritage, Brie, Pizza Coop, and then I forget the name of the
Valdemar
Valdemar,
Estates.
yeah.
Yep.
Valdemar Estates, yes.
And there's so much new coming too, which is cool to see. The Red Hook district blowing up. I don't know what they call it now. It's always going to be Red Hook for me, but
Biggest Red Hook for
those new
everybody.
tasting rooms down there are just stunning.
Yeah.
And
They're
new
huge, too.
experiences.
They
so
are, yeah. Wow. All right. Well, this has
Thank
been
you so
absolutely
much.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Thank
and
you
we
for the
could do this for
opportunity.
hours and hours. We're going to take a really quick break, and when we come back, we're going to challenge Troy with his real estate roundup of the
All
week.
right.
It's his question. Let's see how he does. So
All
stay
right.
tuned. We'll be right back in just a moment.
Smile brighter with Yera Family Dentistry, where top-notch dental care meets a touch of tranquility. Dr. Snea Yera brings a whole new vibe to the dentist chair. Think calming blankets, personalized music, and serene ambiance that turns every visit into a soothing retreat. Yera Family Dentistry are all about your comfort and care. They will not only give you the brightest smile, but make you feel relaxed and informed every step of the way. Experience dentistry like never before. Visit Yera Family Dentistry here in Woodinville today, because a healthy smile should feel as good as it looks. Call 206-703-3993. That's 206-703-3993. Yera Family Dentistry, where your smile is their masterpiece.
Welcome back to TLC Tend Life Community podcast. I'm your co-host Pamela. I'm here with Troy Anderson. He's the host, and of course our guest Dan Thiessen from Walla Walla Steak Co. and many other businesses. Too long a list to mention right now, but we'll come back to Dan in just a moment and get some more details from him on where you can connect with him if you're interested in the beef and the meat sticks and everything else that he does. But for right now, we're going to jump into our real estate roundups segment with Troy and his question of the week. Are you ready?
Oh, gosh. Here we go.
All right, so we teased in last week's episode that we were going to talk about this, and the topic was reverse mortgages. So I want to find out a little bit more about them. So as I mentioned last time around, there's this idea that a reverse mortgage is for somebody that is much later on in life and maybe needs to supplement their income. But that's not necessarily true. So let's talk about that. So how does a reverse mortgage work?
Well, basically, a reverse mortgage, there's certain qualifications. You have to be 62 years old to qualify. That's kind of the first test. And then you have to have enough equity in your house to qualify for that. If you're going to refi and stay in your house, they also have reverse mortgages on purchases too. So you can purchase a new house. So if you wanted to downsize or even upsize, you could. You just have to have the equity, the down payment enough to be able to do that. So.
Okay. So why would you use it? Why would you use a reverse mortgage? I mean, yes, if you're kind of income, you didn't maybe have enough in your retirement fund, and that's one way to
that was
do
kind
it,
of the old adage. It's not for the old lady who's on the fixed income, is kind of what people picture in their head when they think about this reverse mortgage thing. She's got equity in her house but doesn't have the income or the cash flow every month to be able to sustainably live in today's environment. But so today there's a lot of people who use them to buy an investment property, buy a second home, and not have a mortgage payment for that. So you can take out the equity from your current house and buy something else, and then not have a payment and have two places to go. Or I've seen other people take those out and help kids or help grandkids buy their first house and not have that additional burden of the payment.
So when they take the reverse mortgage, then so they don't have a payment. So how does the person that gave them the money get theirs back? Could they lose their house with it?
No, you can't lose it. It's reverse mortgages are unique in that they're a non-recourse loan, meaning that the only thing that the bank could possibly use as collateral is the house. They can't come after any other assets. They can't come after the heirs for any assets that they might have. So it's really a good financial tool to look at. It's not for everybody.
Right.
And there's massively different ways to go about using a reverse mortgage that might be helpful for you down the road. And so, I think it's something that not a lot of people talk about for an option to buy a house.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that just blows my mind. I thought it, like I said, it was a way to kind of not dig yourself out of a hole, but kind of if you were struggling financially, but you had a home, not to buy another one. That's just like, if I had a little graphic, it would go, whew.
Yeah, and some, a lot of people, not everybody, but not everyone like myself is going to want to move into my parents' house or even do something with it. So to have them take the money and use it now while they're alive, I think it's a fantastic tool. Rather than after they pass away, you've got all this equity, but
Right.
you can't enjoy it with them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
All right, well, thank you for that. Any other bits of advice about reverse mortgages or anything else you want to share?
Well,
with
if
our
you're
audience?
interested in a reverse mortgage at all, we've got several different lenders that offer them. So we would love to connect you with someone to just kind of go through that scenario. It doesn't cost any money. It just costs some time to kind of sit down and go through what you're hoping to accomplish and see if a reverse mortgage is going to be the right fit for you. And even if you're in your house and you don't want to sell it because you've got a really low interest rate and your payment's really low, but you don't want to take care of the yard and all that stuff anymore, and you want to downsize and not increase your payment because the interest rates have gone up a little bit lately.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a great tool to use as well. So
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that. Next week's question is going to be, how do I bring my mortgage payment down without refinancing?
bring
Okay.
your mortgage payment down without refinancing?
Yeah.
Oh my
Stay tuned for
gosh.
that one. Okay.
I'm excited.
Got a week to prep for that one.
I know, she usually doesn't do that for me.
Well, I'm just changing things up. It is season 2, so, I'm just making things a little bit
Yeah.
more interesting.
Nice.
But, give you some time to dwell on it. Okay, all right, well, that is the end of our show today. Thanks very much for listening, everybody.
Thank you,
Dan,
Dan.
could you share with our audience where they can purchase your meat, where they can tell everybody where the Walla Walla Steak Company is, both in Walla Walla and here in Woodinville, and anything else you want to share?
Yeah, the easiest website is denim, like blue jeans, denimhospitality.com.
Okay.
That is the parent company that I have that is over Walla Walla Steak Company, Crossbuck Brewing, Thiessen Ranch, Wagon Wrench Vineyard, T-Post Tavern, my brand new country bar concept that I just opened up in Walla Walla in August of this last year. Live entertainment, mechanical bowl, old school country bar with,
Nice, fun.
with circular saw wood everywhere. Our wine glasses are mason jars. That's fun to do in Walla Walla with all the wine folks running around there. And then Yellow Hawk Resort, which is our big resort project. It's an 84-acre estate. We purchased Basil Cellars.
Oh,
The same day we closed on Basil Cellars was the same day I signed the lease for Walla Walla Steak Company Woodinville. That
wow.
was a big day.
Yeah, no puckering there, huh?
But we've transitioned. We've started the transformation to Yellow Hawk Resort. When that thing is all said and done, it'll be a 90-unit bungalow-style resort with farm-to-table restaurants and stunning views of the Blue Mountains. We're really close to permits on our first 21 bungalows. We should get those any week now. But that's another 4-year project that we're working on, and that's where I'm spending most of my time right now, is focused in on Yellow Hawk Resort. So anyway, that's denimhospitality.com is the parent company where
Okay.
people can go there and click then on Thiessen Ranch and check out our beef and follow us on Facebook, and you can see the kids, and my wife does a really good job of running social media for our Thiessen Ranch page. So
Yeah.
it's
Perfect.
a fun portal view into the life on the ranch.
And if you haven't had an opportunity yet to go and have lunch or dinner at Walla Walla Steak Co., then go ahead and
Dinner only
do
at
that.
Steak
Oh,
Company.
dinner
yeah.
only.
Dinner only,
Aw.
5 nights a week.
Oh, okay, all right.
Sorry.
So I guess
But a
share-
great happy hour at Crossbuck.
Perfect. So happy hour at Crossbuck, then you have dinner. What
Yep.
what days are you open in Woodinville?
Tuesday through Saturday.
Perfect. Okay.
Yes.
That's
And
great.
Troy, if somebody has questions about reverse mortgages or anything else that is real estate related, how can they get hold of you?
Well, my parent company is tendhometeam.com.
I like it.
Yeah,
Okay.
No, just messing. Yeah, tendhometeam.com is probably the best spot. And if you want to call me, 206-504-3660. Call or text on that number.
All right. And if you've enjoyed the show and you're watching on YouTube, what do you need to do?
Ding the dinger.
All right. And if you haven't liked and subscribed to the podcast yet, please do so.
Yes.
All right. Well,
Thanks, everybody,
All
for
right.
listening.
thanks.
Thanks for the opportunity
Thanks,
to be
Dan.
here today.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Never fear with Tend Home Team's Love It or List It program. That is where if you buy a house through us and you just don't love it within the first year, we will sell it for free. So that'll give you peace of mind that you're making the right decision as you're going into the process. We've got you covered here at Tend Home Team at EXP. 206-504-3660 or tendhometeam.com to find out more.